Good morning, CLC. I invite you now to just let the radiant light that is Spirit wash over you. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice deep cleansing breath in, breathing in all the love and light that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, let go all that no longer serves you. Allow any stress or worries to just wash away right now. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in cool, calming oxygen. And as you release this breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or on this planet anymore. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
I have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to get right to it. I normally get right to it, but I'm going to get right to it. We're going to move along kind of quickly in here, and I'm going to tell the team down here that you're not going to have a lot of peripheral stuff to look up today, I don't think. This is pretty much, yeah, right. This is the conclusion of a series on the basics of the science of mind. However, next week we pursue using the science of mind in different life situations, so really the series goes on. But we have talked about the four basic introductory chapters in the Science of Mind textbook, and today's on how to use it, and a book called How to Use the Science of Mind is going to be what we reference next month. You with me so far? There's a pile of these in the bookstore over here if you're interested. So what I want to do today is take you through spiritual mind treatment, what spiritual mind treatment is, what it isn't, and but before doing so, I want to address four different questions. There's been a lot of feedback. Often I'll do a series on stuff, and I hear crickets. You watch it, you like it, you don't like it, I don't know, But this time I've had a lot of feedback, questions and concerns and so on around this material from a variety of people. Some of them people we know, and some of them people afar who are watching online. So I wanted to address those four different points right now, and if you're watching, I hope this speaks to you. The first was about what do we call God? And I said through this series that God, the word God for a lot of people has negative associations. I didn't mean it has negative associations for all people everywhere, or nobody would use it. But some people have associations of doom and gloom and judgment and fear and a whole litany of stuff. And how I know this is because they've said so in classes or in person, one-to-one, over the years. I was fortunate. I didn't grow up with that kind of a God. The kind of God that I grew up with was distant and highly theological and very well dressed, A lot of music, a lot of pomp and circumstance, kind of royalty and all, but not threatening, just remote. And so when metaphysics came across my field of vision, I was drawn to this because, it was more engaging. The point here is whatever you want to call the deity, call it. It doesn't mind. The main thing is it calls you. That's what you want, is you want to feel like it knows you. You want to feel like it is where you are. And if the God word is sufficient for you for that, then by all means use it. If you want something else, I have a list. I have a long list that I've compiled, including personal favorites of mine, which you don't need my approval, but I've brought out that the divine nature is a name I'm very much drawn to. I've brought out that the I am becoming, the I am, becoming is a name I'm very much drawn to. Is it as compact as God? Is it as portable as God? No, it's requires. But you're not explaining this to anybody else. This is something just for your own spiritual work. Also, goddess works. You don't have to gender the thing, in the male at all, ever. So, we move on to the next concern, which was about religion and spirituality. Is what we're doing here religious or is it spiritual? Because in the minds of some, it can't be both. You have to choose. Well, I beg to disagree. I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to say it's spiritually religious, it's religiously spiritual. But seriously, spirituality is an experience and religion is a story about that experience. That's the difference. That's the definition to me right there. Spirituality is a direct, first-hand, unmediated experience of the divine, as showing up in nature, as showing up in other people, and certainly as showing up in yourself. And when you have that experience, you want to tell people about it. You want to write about it. You want to sing about it. You want to paint about it. And that's where religion comes in. You want to create a repetitious ritual that provokes that experience again and again. And that's how formal, institutionalized religion came along. Somebody had an experience. Jesus, for example, came into the world. He said, I and my Father are one. He said, I am of him who sent me. And he had this awareness of his oneness with his source that's based on the literature we have at hand is indisputable. So people looked at that and they said, I want that. I want that for myself. So what do I need to do? So when Jesus said, well, when you pray, pray in this manner, and so people started praying in that manner. And then people also started praying to Jesus. It's like, well, let's go. He says, only through me can you come to the Father, which is a statement that it can be taken a number of ways. But if you take it at face value, you say, only through me can you come to that. Then I say, well, then I'll pray to him. And you should too. And I'm going to raise my kids to do that, and generation after generation. And pretty soon it became just a thing. And we've always done this. And you came out of some religious background that you were raised in. And a lot of people in your family probably went to whatever that place was just because prior generations had, and you didn't want to disrespect them. But spirituality is at the heart of the matter, the direct experience, the unmediated. I keep coming back to that word, unmediated. You don't have to go through anybody else. Nobody else steers it for you. Nobody else holds the door open for you. You go directly to the source of your own being and you say, here I am. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to, how can I best live? How can I best love? How can I best serve? You go to that and you have that experience. So religion is a dicey kind of thing because when it gets into enforced behavior, and this goes back to the first question about if Jesse Jennings on a Sunday says, well, we're calling God the divine nature. Does that mean everybody has to just snap to and start doing that? Of course not. That's bogus. But we've all kind of been pushed around a little by other people's opinions, be they religious or political or commercial or what have you. So it's a new thought. Which is what we call this whole shebang. It's a new thought for many people that they can make up their own story. They can make up their own story, which is ironic in a sense because everybody's making up their own story about life and behavior, aren't they? Aren't we, right? All along. We look back at our childhoods and we tell a story of how things were, and then you get with your siblings, if you're fortunate enough to have siblings, and you find out everybody has a different story of the same time sitting around the dinner table and what happened that Christmas and so on. But the story of spirituality is yours to recreate daily and to adjust and tweak, and you can bring more stuff into it. And this is what Ernest Holmes said about this being a syncretistic or syncretic spiritual practice that we have. And what that means is we glom onto spiritual practices from across the globe that look meaningful to us, that especially feel meaningful to us, and we begin to employ them. Okay, let's see what else I had. I said I had 4 of these. Is treatment prayer? Got an email from somebody who's new to all of this and said, is treatment the same thing as prayer? And once again, the answer is an absolute unqualified sort of. Because, okay, the difference between treatment and prayer is in the object-subject relationship, I guess you'd say. In traditional prayer, at least in Western prayer, individual praying is praying to something. It's praying to the deity, the divine, or some subset of that, like a saint, for example, and asking for something and then waiting. Asking for something and then waiting. Or asking and offering something in return, which is called deal making. Okay? If you'll do this for me, I'll quit drinking or go to church every Sunday or feed the poor or do something, if you, and so that's typical prayer. I'm cartooning it some, maybe a lot, but it's prayer. Treatment, on the other hand, says that you don't go to something, you come from something, right? You come from within the divine presence of you. You come from that, and you affirm that all the good that could possibly be given has already arrived. What you're wanting to do is to recombine it into certain forms that are salutary and beneficial to you, you see. And I think I got into this a little last week with the idea that all the musical notes have been created that anybody might ever need. And that every new song that gets written is a recombination of those notes. And every shade and color and hue of paint, let's say, has already been created, except they keep finding more if it comes to paint and carpets and stuff. But anyway, splitting, how many kinds of white can you have? But, eggshell. Anyway, really and truly. And so all new art is recombining this, and you get the idea. So we live in the midst of infinite good that's already been provided. Now what we want is for it to show up in a way that's useful to us. For that to happen, the cosmos does not have to move. We move. We move in consciousness. We are the ones who change. We are the ones who align ourselves. We are the ones who, because our experience of everything, and this is the kicker, and this is where it gets into spiritual psychology, our experience of everything is subjective. Our experience of everything is subjective. Are you having a nice morning today? How do you know? How do you know you're having a nice morning? Do you ask somebody else if you're having a nice morning? You look at how much money you have in your pocket to decide that. Have you eaten breakfast or not? Maybe you don't like breakfast. Are you having a nice morning? It's subjective to you. And if somebody asked you to defend it, you probably couldn't. They say, what's with you having a nice morning? Nobody else is. And you're like, well, and you start coming up with these reasons, and they're meaningless to anyone outside the self. You know how you are. You know how you feel. Okay? So, are you abundant today? Where do you look for that? Well, people would say you look at your money or you look at your power or something. No, you look at your heart. You look at how you feel. Okay? Are you healthy today? Are you emotionally balanced today? Are you loving and kindly today? By what measure, we ask ourselves? By a subjective measure known only to us. Yes, we make social agreements, social contracts around these things, but it always spirals back to the self and how the self feels. So treatment is bringing ourselves into alignment with it's poetically called the divine idea, bringing ourselves into alignment with the fact that there is one life, that life is spirit, that life is all the life there is, and that life is the life we're having right now. And therefore, I'll get more into this in a minute, but therefore in that life is everything I could possibly want. So am I open to it? Am I accepting of it? Am I willing to have this happen? And if I'm not, why am I not? What is there in the way of this? And I will look at that. And it's an unmet need of some kind that has greater priority to me than the goal I say I've stated. See, there's something in the way of this, and so I want to address that first. You ever have a task that you want to accomplish, but before you can, you have to do something else, and before you do that, somebody has to return your phone call. And before that, you're waiting on something in the mail. And so there's this whole line of stuff that can't happen until it's the pin gets pulled or whatever, and things start to fall into place. Well, sometimes we have a grievance against life that's deep down inside that needs to be addressed first before we can be all prosperous and happy and loving and kind. Like there's forgiveness work to do. Forgiveness of self and others. And this leads into a fifth question that didn't get asked this time around, but it did one time by a student, which was, which is more limiting to us, resentment or regret? They asked me this, and I instantly answered regret. Because I think resentment, you can talk yourself out of more easily. If you resent Joe because of something, you know, you look at it, now Joe means well, or he didn't mean that, and or there are extenuating circumstances. You cut Joe some slack. We don't cut ourselves slack because we know all the extenuating circumstances are completely bogus and made up, right? So we know we knew what we were doing when we did it, and that is the thing sometimes that has to be addressed first. And you'll know it if it does, because it'll come up and it'll tug on your sleeve, and you'll set a goal, you'll set your sights on some wonderful outcome, and this thing will come right up in your face and say, not before you go through me, not before you work through me. And there's a whole interesting historical background I could give you on this, but mercifully won't. About the labors of Hercules and St. George and the Dragon and even the Grail quest, and all of these things are metaphorical for the issues that one has to pass through in order to stand, quote unquote, naked and alone before the King of Angels, before the deity, whatever your representation of the deity is. There's stuff you have to accomplish. Even in The Wizard of Oz, this shows up. You want to go home? Go do some stuff. Go do some stuff. And it's all symbolic, right? Okay? So that's the journey that we take to get back to the place of beginning. To come to the place where we realize, I am enough. I've always been enough. Yes, I've made mistakes, but I'm what? Not a mistake. I'm not a mistake. I've made mistakes. I'm going to continue I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to try not to make the same one twice, or at least 3 times, All right, let's see. There was one more here. In treatment, whom do we treat in treatment? We treat the self. And this is also a distinguishing characteristic of treatment from prayer. Because in prayer, I may be praying at you. I may be praying to something, but about you, at you. And in treatment, I'm treating myself. I'm having a knowing. Isn't that a wonderful, that's such a new thought expression. I'm having a knowing, okay? Or you could be knowing a having, couldn't you? I'm having a knowing within myself. I treat myself. And if you need help, I'm not treating you. I'm treating myself about you. I'm treating myself about the relief that you seek. If I have a condition in my life, I'm not treating the condition. Holmes jumped up and down about this in his writing. And so have everyone who's been my teacher. They've all just hammered this point, is we do not treat conditions at the level of conditions. That's rearranging the furniture. We do not treat conditions. We treat ourselves about the experience of conditions. And so if a condition exists in your life, you go to a higher thought about it. You go to a higher principle, like, say, well-being. Let's say you have a physical malady of some kind. You go to the essence of universal, intrinsic well-being, and you affirm that that principle is now appearing where the physical limitation existed. And you can get detailed about this. It's now happening through every cell, every molecule, every atom, every particle of the being. It's not, Holmes had an expression too. He said every organ and action and function. That pretty much covers it, doesn't it? Okay? Bone, sinew, tendon. You can, if you're into human anatomy, you can make a list of all of these parts, And right now, they're all animated by perfect intelligence. Not because you say they are, but because they always have been. And whatever exists as some kind of a limiting factor, a steering factor in how they're working today, now snaps back and realigns itself to the divine idea of wholeness and perfection after which we were created. Now, I know it sounds like a tall order, doesn't it? But this thing works. This thing works. And the bottom line about treatment to me, because another question, I keep coming up with questions for you, but another question that comes up all the time, does treatment always work? And the short answer to that is yes, if you're not too picky about what happens. In other words, I have never known anyone, and it's been a while now, I've been exploring this, okay? I've never known anyone who's treated and had something worse show up. There's always something of an improvement. Treatment will improve your life in somewhat. Or as they say, you'll get better or you'll know the reason why. And the reason why very often is about spiritual psychology. And it'll come back to do this first. Do this first. Work on this for this is the burden you've been carrying. You remember Holmes back in at Asilomar material in November, December. He talked about the corpse that we carry. You know, graphic, nasty image, but there you are. Or the unconscious burden that we carry. It will point you back to that. Sometimes healing is instantaneous. Sometimes healing takes a while as we measure time. There's always a process. There's a process in it, he said, but no process of it. In other words, the recognition of oneness is instantaneous. Then the outcome of that can unfold, a very Holmesian word, unfoldment. It can unfold in time. So this is spiritual mind treatment, and we can't expect to get it all covered in a morning or a host of mornings, which is why we have classes, we have books, we have book studies, we have discussions, we have loads of stuff, all of which come back to treatment at some point or another, come back to this recognition, because it's a spiritual practice that you can use. And when Holmes was initially teaching it on the West Coast in the 19-teens and 20s, it was to a room full of people who were of other spiritual backgrounds and stuff. And he said, whatever sort of religion you practice, this will help you. Whatever sort of deity you pray to, this will make it work better, because you'll be believing that something's going to happen. I mean, it's pointless and performative to pray and think, this is going nowhere, but at least people are seeing me pray. Right? Y'all watching? You know, here I am doing my duty, doing my thing, you know. But no, we want something real, tangible to happen out of it. And so pray and believe that you are entitled to the good that you seek, because it harms no one and benefits all. Okay, so that's some of the questions that have come up. If you have more after this, email me, call me or something during the week, and I'll be happy to touch on them as I can in the series going forward. Now I want to get into exactly what treatment is, and this isn't going to take a whole long time. Plus, it's on our Facebook page. There are a couple of documents. I just put one up this morning, Lisa. I hope you don't mind. It's out of a brochure that we have called Speaking the Word, and more easily now than printing up a bunch of brochures is doing it digitally so everybody can have it. And this is page 2 of the thing about how treatment works. So there are, all right, how many steps are there in treatment? You've heard 5, you've heard 7, you've heard 9 in the last little while. And somebody's probably working on right now 12, except that's already been taken. Think about it. And are the more steps, is it more powerful? No. It's somebody gets to copyright it. You know, somebody said, well, I've come up with, and you could have 317 steps, but how would you remember them all? So I come back to the 5. I come back to the 5 I was taught, with all respect to anybody else's form of treatment, these 5 steps, because I think they're enough, and I frankly think the other steps are sub-steps of these 5, you know? So imagine in your mind, which is redundant. Where else would you imagine it? Imagine a pyramid. Imagine a pyramid, right? Okay? And at the point of the pyramid is where we're going to begin the treatment. All pyramids come to something of a point. All geometric figures that are pyramidal come to a point. Starts from one point, turns into a line, turns into angles, and so on. So this one point, this singularity, which the ancients called a monad, this singularity is one. There is one life. There is one mind. There is one heart. There is one power. There is one this. There is one that. Whatever you want to call it. There's one. All are one. Everything is contained within this one. Everything in this room is one. Everything on this planet is one. Everything on any planet is one. Everything throughout all space. You get the idea. And the other direction. Everything in decreased size is one. Every atom, every cell, everything, every microscopic sort of thing is part of this one. This one, and furthermore, this one is fully present. Being one, it's fully present at every point within itself. Because if it were not fully present at every point within itself, it'd be somewhere else busy doing that, and then you would have more than one, wouldn't you? You'd have simultaneous occurrence, but you would not have unified occurrence. So this one is all there is, everywhere, all at once. That's step one. If you did nothing more than step one, you'd have a good time. You really would. Just sitting in that knowing of oneness. But it gets better. Step two is a unification of the self with that one. It's an identification of the self with that one. Oh, say, there's one life. Then who am I? Then who is my life? What is my life? My life is of that one. So whatever is true of that one is happening, or available anyway to happen, right where I am. Now what's happening within that one? Absolutely everything that ever has occurred, is occurring now, or ever could occur. And all of that is accessible to me, but I don't need all of it. I certainly don't want all of it. But I know what I want. I want to feel like, I make a difference. I want to feel peace in my heart. And everybody has their own list. So there's one life, and that life is right where I am, as I am. And if you only did the first two steps, you'd have a very good time, and you'd be doing what's called meditating. That's meditation right there. There's one life. That life is my life. I'm not asking anything. I have no agenda here. I'm just basking in the glow of that one life. I'm having spiritual communion with that one life. But there's more. Step three is a realization, also called an affirmation. That because there's one life, and that life therefore is my life, then all of the attributes of that life are available to my life. So what'll I have? So what'll I choose today? Where will I go today? How will I have my life work today? What will I fix and repair in my life? What will I extend myself to do? What will I learn? And on and on. See? And so we start affirming things to ourselves. Say, I can now operate a video camera. I now, I made this up because I'm looking at one, all right? So, everything I need to know about operating a video camera comes from the one mind into my use of that mind. It effectively flows into me, and I'm able to wrap my mind around this information and use it in a beneficial way for the highest good of all concerned, blah, blah, blah. See? So you decide what it is you want to create in your life. You're always creating something, and that's the thing about science mind, is we don't start using it. We learn that we always have been using it. Big difference there. We don't kickstart the thing. We just come into awareness of it. It's like breathing. When they first told you about breathing, you're like, yeah, I think I'll do that. That sounds like a good idea. When you were a little kid, and it's like, no, you've been doing it the whole time. Now here's how to do it. Deep breathing, and you learn how to, you want to sing, then you learn how to breathe in a certain way, and so on. And so we affirm things. Now we're always affirming something. We have it's like a crawl on TV, across the bottom of the screen. You'll see a news crawl. I don't know if they still do this, but they used to anyway. And it's like we have this crawl going on that, a narration going on of what we're perceiving in life. We're narrating it to ourselves. That's our affirmation of life. Like, oh, this could be, man, it's Monday again, or, this could be trouble, or I really don't want to do this, or this is so annoying, or, yeah, right. We get skeptical, we get cynical, and we have this narration going on, and then we're like, where's all the magic and beauty of life? Because all I'm seeing is, this drab, gray kind of experience. And we don't realize, until we do, that it's our narration that's characterizing what we're seeing and shaping it as what it is. So an affirmation is taking accountability, really, for the words that you speak when you talk to yourself, what you say in your mental narration, your private dictation of information about life. And you craft an affirmation, and you craft the affirmation in the first person because you're the one who's knowing it and having it. You craft it in the present tense because you're the one who's right here now, you know. And the question had come up, do we use I or you in treatment? Well, it depends, really. Mostly I, when it's private treatment, you're doing it for yourself. If you're doing it on stage in front of a group of people, it can be awkward to say, I now know. I've thought of this over the years when we had circles here and stuff, and I'm up here and I now know and I now think. And I'm imagining the people out there saying, well, hello, what about, you know, I'm here too, what about me? Because when you invite a group in, you have a group experience of it. And so we're going to affirm some things about you, the group, with the understanding that the group is the I am. It's a composition of individual I amness. But in your private work, or in your work for yourself or for, you know, another, when you sit face to face, you're treating the self. And so I'll say, I now know. I now know. And if, you know, if it's somebody else who's hip to this, they'll understand what you're doing, which is why our goal is to make everybody hip to this. That's why we do what we do. All right? You with me so far? So we're through three steps now. Realization. A lot more can be said about all these, especially realization, because like people say, is there anything I shouldn't want? Well, you know there is. You don't have to ask anybody that, okay? Come on now. And if it harms someone else, you don't get to have a higher spiritual consciousness and pull the rug out from other people. Here, give me that. I want that job. I want that relationship. Give me that. Because I have, you know, I know about treatment. Well, that's just twisted, isn't it? So we would never do that, but we want to be aware that such a proclivity might exist, you know, if we've been raised in a highly competitive environment. How do you know if an affirmation is going to work? You feel it. You feel it. That's an easy one. You feel it. How would you feel if all your needs were easily and naturally met? You know? How would you feel if all, as Shakespeare said, if all your heart's desires were with you right now? How would you feel? Well, you'd be over the moon, wouldn't you? Well, are you willing to be over the moon right now before they've shown up and carry that into treatment? Carry that into your affirmation, your realization step. If you're willing to do that, you're able to do that. Okay? Or to put it another way, nobody's unable to do that but willing to do that. Because the willingness immediately opens up the ability to do whatever has to be done inside the self to position yourself to enjoy this increased good in your life. And so, how do you feel about it? You write short, punchy affirmations that move you, and you feel something, and then you speak them. And then the fourth step, there are 5 if you're counting, the fourth step is thanksgiving. And this is very simple. Thanksgiving in this context of treatment is not something that we do, that we have to remember to do, that we have to set the alarm on our phone to do. I have to remember to be grateful. No, it just comes up. It just comes up at this point. A feeling of gratitude sweeps over you. And if it does not sweep over you, it's a good indication that everything that you put immediately before it as the affirmation or realization step, you're not buying. There's still a part of you that's skeptical and kind of got one foot out the door and all, and that's good to know. So you want to go back and revisit the realization step. See, the only key to the real effectiveness of the realization is, do you buy it? Heart and soul, do you buy it? Do you accept it? Nobody else has to accept it. Look at all the great explorers and discoverers and inventors and amazing people of our species down through the eons who did stuff that nobody else believed. In fact, a quick story about this, and please don't look this up because it's like completely pointless, but I was thinking just yesterday about ranch dressing. I'm old enough to remember when ranch dressing came on the scene. And at that time, there was Green Goddess, and there was French, and there was Russian, okay, and oil and vinegar, and blue cheese, and so on. And Thousand Island, thank you, at Thousand Island. Some others of you are salad aficionados. Okay? A lot of those dressings you can't find anymore. You know, you just, I mean, they don't even, and so somebody came up with the idea, and I don't need to know who it was, but somebody came up with the idea. Say, what about buttermilk ranch dressing like we make out at our, ranch? And I can imagine them going to whoever they had to go to with this and being told, the world has enough salad dressings. But they persevered, didn't they? And now ranch is the most popular salad dressing on earth, by far. Okay? Now that's a silly example, or is it? Because they're examples of it. Whoever pushed that believed in it. They believed in their own vision. And eventually they convinced somebody else to buy in and put up the money and, the production of it and so on. So we convince ourselves, and the vision manages the details. The vision manages the details. You have an idea for something, people will come out of the woodwork to help you with it, to fund it, to promote it, to market it, talk it up, and so on. Okay, so let's assume then that in the Thanksgiving step, you do feel it, and this sense of gratitude wells over you, and then you think to yourself, being smart like you are, you think to yourself, well, I don't want to get too grateful right now because nothing's happened yet. Well, what you're practicing is proactive gratitude. You're believing in the availability of your good even though you can't see it yet. And this takes practice of working with the unseen realm, because there's a lot of things going on that you can't see right now, that you can't perceive right now, that are highly useful to you, like the air you're breathing in this room, like the blood that's circulating through your body, the food that's being digested in your gut, and on, okay? Everything, plus whatever you cherish in this life that's not in your pockets right now, like, at home, your friends and family and your neighborhood and all, you don't see them right now. So where are they? Well, they exist, and you trust in them, and you trust that when it's time for you to be with them, you'll be with them. See? So we learn to trust, and we learn to soften up the subconscious mind so that this feeling of gratitude can't sweep over us, and we don't question it, we don't challenge it, and push it back down. We just say yes to life. And then the fifth and final step is release. And release is widely misunderstood because it's like the period at the end of the sentence, and that's just all. But what you're doing is you're saving your treatment to your cosmic hard drive. That's how you might think of it. You're saving it to a system within yourself that knows how to go and get it, knows how to make it happen. You're releasing it. You're releasing your emotional attachment to it while it takes off and does what it does. If you don't release it, you keep it up at a certain level in your consciousness where you're going over it and over it again and again. And it's like a little plant that you plant in the garden, and then you keep pulling the thing up to see how it's doing. Have you ever done that, like when you were a little kid, or, uninstructed in how gardening works? And you pull the thing out of its creative medium, and you stunt its growth. So we want to release this thing. We want to let it go. I used to use the example of you write a letter and you put a stamp on the letter and you drop it in the mailbox. Sometimes we still do that, And you trust. You trust that they're going to take the thing and deliver it, and in due time you're going to get a message back. Well, the same is true of anything that you send out by any form, into the world. Is I am releasing this now and turning my attention to other things. So when you go see a practitioner and they do treatment for you, very often what they'll say at the end is, now you've poured out your heart to me and told me of the challenges that you're facing. I've treated about it. Now go see a movie. Okay? Now take a walk around the block. Go bowling. Whatever. Take your mind off the situation for a while to let this information move from the conscious to the subconscious level. Because at the subconscious level is where this oneness really turns up. Being oneness, it's present at every level within itself, but at the subconscious level is where there is a connection, not only unmediated, but unfettered, unimpeded connection between our fields of consciousness and everybody and everything else's, you see. symbolized by the space between the two parallel lines on this device behind me. Maybe I'll bring that up next week. But, okay? So the Word is deposited into, we call it the Word sometimes. We talked about in December. The Word is deposited into this field, and it goes and it finds collaborators for you. Okay? It finds partners for you to do this thing. Say, here's my story. Here's my story of my experience of Spirit. Does it resonate with you? If so, let's get together. And we did, didn't we? We got together and we formed a new religion and a new science, as Holmes said. One that was not based on judgment and separation and exclusion, but that was based on our joy and our gratitude for knowing who we are and whose we are and how we exist in this one life. So presently, Reverend Lisa's going to get up here, meaning after a song or two, she's going to get up here and give a spiritual mind treatment. And then we'll come back next week and we'll talk more about the application of treatment and what we know to specific challenges, specific issues that come up in life, the discordant facts that we look in the face, and we reconcile them back into the one by saying there is just one, no matter how things appear. Thank you.
So as we come up to giving time, we are grateful for all that you do for Creative Life Spiritual Center. We're grateful for your contributions, and we would really appreciate it if you help us to get out the message that Reverend Jesse was talking about this morning. You can do that by making monetary contributions and also by helping us. And there's lots of ways to do that. You can do it by check. You can do it by physically in the room with a check or cash. You can do it online. There's lots of different ways. So now say with me now. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
All right. And now I owe you a treatment. That was not me. I owe you a treatment. I owe you a treatment. He started out talking about the pyramid, and then I kind of lost the pyramid. I don't know what were the various steps of the treatment. Steps of the pyramid? Were they the sides of the pyramid?
Only from the top to the base, but I forgot about it.
Okay, because I was like, wait, what happened here? So now, occasionally you want him to get up here with a board and diagram stuff out. So that is for classes. Okay, so. Although I just want you to know that I have every intention of taking that video apart and making each question and maybe each step of its own little video, its own little short. I'm just going to take this video apart. I'm super excited about it. All right, but that's neither here nor there. What is here now is that I'm going to invite you into the consciously sacred with me. As Jesse reminded us, we do this stuff all the time. We are in the sacred all the time. It is up to us to do it consciously. So step consciously with me into that I am. And know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And that each of us live that life. We are that love. We are that presence. That power flows through us, as it does every living thing. And as we walk forward into this new month, I am knowing that our heart opens. It opens a little bit more to something amazing. That the Spirit that walks before us and makes our way plain sets up the guideposts so that our heart expands in love, in joy, in peace, in presence, that we look each other in the eye and see that beloved expression of the divine looking back at us. That what we do is easy. Our burdens are light. Our cares are lifted. Our joy is magnified. As we walk forward, we are guided to that which is good and amazing, and for us. That each light in this room, each light hearing these words, recognizes who they are and sees the path laid before them. That which you are seeking is seeking you. As joy has heard your name, as love has heard your name, it has run through the streets shouting your name. That you know who you are at the core of your being. And you recognize each other. And I'm knowing this with all of that gratitude in my being. That I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me this. I am grateful for a community that shares this with me. I am grateful for our practitioners. I am grateful for our ministers. I am grateful for our musicians. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for the technology that allows this to be sent to the ether and watched more than once. And I am grateful because gratitude feels good, and it's just another word for love. And I relax into this present knowing that it is done. And I release my word into law with love. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is.